I am here today to celebrate the launch of the Chocolate Bar Life with Danielle Colley. Congratulations, Danielle.
Thank you. Coming live from the chocolate factory.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling elated, actually. Yesterday was my birthday book launch bash in my hometown. So I'm feeling really, really elated. It's, you know, when you have a couple of days of lead up and then you have a big event and then there's this, it's just like ongoing for the next couple of weeks even. So I'm just riding that wave of the high of I think celebrating all the hard work.
Yeah, months and months and months of really hard work. And it's been so much fun to work with you. And you have really been so focused, which is admirable, I have to say. Like you've never dropped the ball, and it's always just been really consistent. And so that's why Chocolate Bar Life is an amazing book. Can you tell us what prompted you to write it?
I have been working with people in leadership for many years now, and I actually had this theory called the Mars Bar Life theory that I've told on stages and training rooms and stuff around the country, helping people to have sustainable ambition and holistic success without burning out, right? The burnout stats everywhere are just sky high. 8 out of 10 people in 2024 are going to experience burnout, red flags, right? So I'd been working with this philosophy. And then there was this one particular day I was working with this guy who works in the C-suite. He'd had 2 major burnouts, ending up in hospital. And he was going for a new job and he was determined this time it was going to be different. So I was talking him through this philosophy and like I was so into it, right? Normally I'm talking about, you know, work, rest and play and how to have the balance. But this time I was going to nougat and caramel and chocolate. And I was so in depth in the Mars bar part of the philosophy that I was like, oh, it's all coming together. It's all gelling for me. And I said to him, I should write a book about this. And then I went, oh, I should write a book about this. I'd been thinking about writing a book for a while and just quite have the thing. And so I had my thing.
Yeah.
So that became it.
So what is the Chocolate Bar Life?
The Chocolate Bar Life is it started when somebody said to me, I was really stressed out. I had zero balance. I wasn't taking care of myself. Everything had become about work and family. And someone said to me, you need your life to be more like a Mars bar. You need to find the balance of work, rest, and play. And I literally just thought, oh, that's a bit cute, right? And didn't think too much more of it. And then it really, like once I got into coaching and started working with people in leadership, started working with more people who were experiencing what I've experienced so many times, which is that pedal to the metal at all costs, not taking care of myself, just really focusing on in front of me, and not taking care of what's happening in the present, you know.
Yeah.
So it really became about those elements of work, rest, and play, and how to bring them into your life more like a Mars bar, right? So a Mars bar is made up of nougat, caramel, and chocolate, right? And it's yum. It's so good. But if you look like at a cross section of a Mars bar, the nougat bit is quite chunky. And then the caramel bit, there's not enough of it, I think. And then chocolate, I mean, it's just like considering it's a chocolate bar, the chocolate's like the least amount there, right? It's just like the encasing it and holding it all together. But when you have a bite, those ratios are magic, right? It just tastes like a symphony in your mouth. If we think about those elements of nougat, caramel, and chocolate and the elements of work, rest, and play, they're kind of similar, right? We don't have to have the equal ratio of work, rest, and play in our daily life, but when they're all present, life can feel much sweeter to live.
Yeah.
So the philosophy really became about how do we as busy humans with so many competing priorities, with so many things constantly clamoring for our attention, how do we prioritize this balance of work, rest, and play so that our lives actually feel good to live? And that, I mean, that is the secret, right, to the chocolate bar life.
And I love how your book is divided into 3 sections, into work, rest, and play. And it's a memoir as well as within the self-help genre. And so you use your own personal stories, don't you, to show what is play, what does work look like when it's not completely out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. And what does it look like when it is completely out of control? Like, I think that, the beauty of humans is that we connect through storytelling. And when we are embroiled or enrolled in somebody else's story, it's so much easier for us to relate, even though context might be different.
Yeah.
Feelings can be the same. So when we can see ourselves in somebody else's story, it's so much easier for us to be on the journey to the rest of it. So it's almost like I use my own misadventures and my own anecdotes and my case studies as well of the people that I've worked with. Use those as the key to create the connection so that someone can be on the journey for the learning and the actual, the takeaways that they can use in their own lives.
So you've worked with clients and you have firsthand experience of burnout. What are some of the telltale signs of burnout?
Yeah, well, Herbert Freudenberger coined the term burnout. And Herbert Freudenberger just sounds like someone who's going to coin a great scientific term, I think. So he found that there are 3 sort of major telltale signs, 3 flags that we should be really looking out for. And when you break them down, they are things like the running out of care, running out of I want to say, can I swear? I shouldn't swear. We should keep it above board. But when you run out of care, right? So you've cared for something too much for too long. And that can happen in a work sense, right? When you're under pressure, you're putting all of your everything into it. And then all of a sudden you just you hit a wall and it's like, it's like compassion burnout. But it can also happen like in a family sense, right? When you just at the end of the line of caring, like if you've got a sick child or a parent who needs all of your attention, or indeed sometimes if your relationship is really under a lot of pressure and you put so much effort and so much emphasis into it, and all of a sudden you just kind of run out and you're like, oh, I'm just emotionally spent, right? So that is one of the flags. The other one is like that sort of disengagement, right? So it's that it's different to the lack of running out of compassion or running out of empathy. It's when you're like, I don't even care anymore, right? When you literally hit the wall and stop caring about things. You don't care about the outcomes in your work anymore. You don't care if what's happening in your family or in your relationship anymore. Because burnout can happen in so many different contexts. Thing is, when it happens in one context, it does tend to permeate, right? It's like a sneaky little sticky. A sticky, insidious vibe that it overtakes. And the last flag that our friend Herbert came up with or found was like feeling like nothing you do is going to make any difference anyway. So no light at the end of the tunnel, right? It's like no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, it's useless. So when you have these 3 kind of things in play together, that's when we're looking at what is termed burnout. And how that can look is malaise, exhaustion, emotional dysregulation, depression, anxiety, and just like that general sort of overwhelm of I just even thinking about it makes me just sigh. Like I just can't anymore. I just don't want to. And when we push through that, that's when we like get into dangerous territory as well. When we like continue to force ourselves, we head into really dangerous territory, which can lead to, you know, epic mental episodes, anxiety, all sorts of things, you know.
What would your top 3 tips be for trying to address it?
I reckon it's similar to any kind of addiction. Step 1 is recognizing there's a problem.
Mm.
Often we are so busy on the treadmill or on the hamster wheel that we're just going and going and going and going. There's no time to stop and reflect. There's no time to ask, am I okay? What do I need? Does this feel good? Like, does this feel sustainable? Does this feel manageable? Am I enjoying this? Or am I just going through the motions day after day? How is my energy? You know, so having those like reflection points, I think, is really important. When you recognize, or if you recognize that there is an issue, then it's bringing in some rock solid boundaries, right? What is okay for you and what is not okay for you? Often we'll find that we've allowed something to be okay for too long that actually isn't, it like it's not aligned with us, it's not working for us any longer, but we might feel like because we've sort of started, we need to continue. So I think it's getting clear on what is okay for you, what is not okay with you, and then having some tough conversations if you need to, or making some changes in your life, which doesn't necessarily mean setting fire to the whole lot and running for the hills, right? You don't have to quit your whole life just because there are some elements of it that aren't working. It's assessing what isn't working, what specifically isn't working, and what tweaks can I make so that it no longer feels like it's like consuming me.
Yeah, yeah. I love your turn of phrase, and I find you endlessly entertaining, and you come up with these phrases that to me are just so catchy and need to be on a t-shirt, like badass boundary bandit. I did ask you to be wearing a t-shirt today that says
You
that.
did. Full disclosure, I actually started to design it on Canva. And then I looked at my to-do list and I was like, is this the best use of your time?
Well, if you can get me a size L, that would be
Okay,
awesome.
I will. I'll look into my merch because the font that I found was very, very fun. But badass boundary bounded, oh my god, badass. The alliteration's killing me. Badass boundary bandit
Bandit.
is what everybody needs to become.
What is it?
Absolutely. Well, it's when you become a badass at your boundaries, right? So your boundaries are like the things that you hold sacred, and you get to decide what your boundaries are. What is okay for you? What is not okay for you? What are your hard boundaries? What are the things that you will get up for? What are the things that you will die for? What are the things that you will it's really funny. I had this, it's in the book actually, but I had this client who came to me and she is so smart, right? She's got a PhD, super smart, really, really into the self-development field as well. So she's all over Brené Brown and she's all over Louise L. Hay. She's all over Wayne Dyer. But she said to me, like, I hear everybody talking about boundaries, but I don't actually know what they are. Can you break it down for me? And ultimately, it really is as simple as you saying what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. So if it's a work thing, it's like, what hours are you available? What hours are you unavailable? When will you be on email? When will you not be on email? When can someone call you? When can't they call you? With your family, you know, what are you willing to give and bend on? And when do you need to look after yourself, your own energy, and take care of your own needs first? And the thing with boundaries is, while you need to protect them and be the badass boundary bandit, I'm just going to stop saying it. The triple B, when you need to be the triple B, right? That's for you to decide, and it can change. right? It can be, it doesn't have to be like a super firm, super hard line. You're like, no, I never do whatever, right? We need to be flexible. We need to have, because that can be a problem too, inflexibility.
Flexibility, yeah.
Right? We need to be flexible, and we need to recognize that our energy levels aren't going to be the same all the time. What we have to give, what we can do is going to be different on any given day. Your best is going to be different on any given day. So you get to decide.
Yes.
You get to decide what your boundaries are, right? You get to decide what your boundaries are on any given day. The thing that people often have problems with are people pleasing, communicating around that, not wanting to rock the boat, not wanting to seem difficult. So it can be really easy to have these spaghetti boundaries, and then nobody really knows where anyone stands. So I think, we need to get really clear, firstly, in our own minds, what we're okay with, and then get great at communicating it and being okay with how people receive your boundaries, right? It's actually not really on you how people receive them. How you communicate them is on you. How it's received is somebody else's responsibility.
I saw with interest and thought of you, the new British PM has said that Friday nights is for his family and he's not going to be attending to matters of state. And then he won on a Friday and they were like, okay, so he's not going to do it tonight, obviously.
Yeah, right. That would have been awkward, but there we have the flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every now and then, if there is a major thing, he's going to need to. Pardon?
It was used against him in the campaign. They said, oh, this guy's not fully committed because he wants Friday nights with his family.
Yeah, of course.
This is going to be interesting to watch. Let's see.
Yeah.
Now, you yourself have been a regular visitor to Burnout Town. Yeah. Why is it so hard to defeat burnout once and for all? And do you think there's something about modern life that's detrimental?
Hell yeah. So what is it about, there's two parts, there was a couple of parts to that question. What was the first part? What is it about modern life?
You've been there a few times, Burnout Town, and you describe this in your book when you go back to Burnout Town.
Yeah.
This is a continuous exercise, isn't it, to keep burnout?
Oh, God, yeah. God, yes, absolutely. Like, I think that it comes back to this kind of checking in and this self-reflection, does this feel good? Right? Does my life feel good right now? And we all have moments where we're under the pump, we're under pressure. I've had a really big couple of weeks of push for the launch and stuff like that. But then it was recognizing, actually, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I need to take a day off in bed. So what has to give here? Right. And shimmying stuff to ensure that I'm always taking care of the most important things, right? So with the modern life, I think what has happened is, firstly, there is a lot of external pressures for us to constantly be on, to constantly be available, to be achieving. Like, there has become this sort of societal messaging about what success actually looks like. And we've sort of fed into this machine of more and more and more, and then what that looks like externally, with all of the social media, we're constantly seeing everybody's highlight reel and how great everybody else is doing. So it feels like whatever we're doing is not measuring up. So it can become really easy to get on that treadmill of like comparatitis, constantly feeling like you need to prove yourself, prove your worth. And that's when we start slipping into the intrinsic stuff. So how we feel about ourselves and our self-worth can sort of propel us towards overdoing it. I think that the extrinsic factors are a really big thing that I see with my clients time and time again, but they are very much driven by internal worlds, the internal world. Like, what are they feeling? How do they feel about themselves? How do they feel about their vision or versions of success? How do they feel like, what do they feel like they need to do in order to be a good, valid, valued, worthy person? And I think that unraveling that stickiness, I mean, that's the work. And I think that ambition is awesome. goals are brilliant. I love having big, audacious goals and like making bold moves. I think that we need to balance that out with understanding what is driving us at any given time. It's great to be driven by a desire to, reach more people and have greater impact and help people to live better lives. But if you're pushing yourself continuously to feel like you're actually a successful human or better than you feel like you are, then you're on a really slippery slope, because it's not a destination that you'll ever reach.
No. Do you think women are more susceptible to burnout?
Statistically, since COVID, men's burnout has gone down a bit, and women's burnout has gone up a bit. But it's not like it's not a super huge chasm, right? I thought it would be bigger. There definitely is a difference between men and women. I think that men shove it down, hide it until it's like it goes too far.
Yeah.
But there is definitely it happens across both sexes. That said, women's has increased since COVID. Statistically, I think the latest stats out of Mercer HR was that 8 out of 10 people are going to be experiencing those burnout symptoms in 2024. Women, as we know, are shouldering a larger amount of the mental load and the physical load in the home. So, everybody is feeling the pressure, and yes, women are feeling it more. But like, if we look at those stats of 8 out of 10 people, what are we doing with our lives? Like, 8 out of 10 people are going to be experiencing burnout symptoms. Like, that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And that was the highest kind of research I could find. Even the lowest is still looking at 65, 70%. It's not that different, right? So what are we doing? And then if you look at, the way that that businesses or companies are structuring to help their employees, only I think 45 to 50% of businesses are actually really geared towards employee well-being. That's a lot of people feeling the pressure and a lot of businesses not taking care of people feeling the pressure. But ultimately, I think while employers need to get better at it, it's our responsibility. Our well-being is our own responsibility until it becomes a more globally recognized thing that taking care of your greatest asset, right, your people, is imperative to a successful business.
Yeah.
We need to be taking care of ourselves to have a holistically successful life. And a holistically successful life means whole life success, which means not just your career.
Yeah.
Right? That's your taking care of your physical, mental, emotional needs to be as important to you as your pay packet, right? What's the point of having all the bucks in the bank if you're constantly canceling gym appointments or doctor's appointments or things with your kids or whatever? Like, it's what are we doing?
Yeah. I love your analogy in the book where you have a client that was doing this and you say she was giving everyone else the Mars bar and just keeping the wrapper for herself, just the crappy wrapper. And that's not how it should be.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to be taking like the first like juicy bite of the king size bar.
Yeah. What have you learned about the connection between burnout and ADHD?
Wow. Well, I learned the hard way about that connection because I was diagnosed with ADHD just a little bit before I started writing the book. So what I've discovered is my own personal cycle throughout my life is go really, really fast and really, really hard, and then like just collapse in a heap. And they go really, really fast and really, really hard, and then collapse in a heap. And I take too much on. I think too much. I overthink. I over analyze. I overproduce. And overachieve, and end up like in a heap. So that is a fairly standard thing with ADHD. Sometimes it actually shows up in total paralysis and procrastination with the ADHD brain. There is so much possibility and so much that I could be doing, and instead I'm just going to be like,
choice. Yeah,
absolutely. But what I have found is, and this is anecdotally more than research, the stuff that I have learned and read about it has been mostly through podcasts, through social media like everybody else, and a few books. The best, if anybody really wants some good intel on this, because I'm not an expert on ADHD, but I really enjoyed The Year I Met My Brain by Matilda Bosley. I found that to be very, very helpful. But what I have found anecdotally amongst my peers who are also all coming out of the woodworks with ADHD is that it is a very, very common thing. Yeah. Go too hard, go like too hard from the starting blocks. And then over like frying your nervous system by trying so hard and working so hard. So what I've learned, I think for me, is firstly, treatment, whatever that means for you, right? Don't just ignore it. Yep. For me, that has meant medication and lots of lifestyle changes, and recognizing and knowing this about myself, so I can have the awareness of when I'm doing it. So I know, okay, I need to pull back, because, historically what happens here is I go too hard and then fall in a mess, and I don't get to enjoy any of it, particularly something like this. Once upon a time, I would have fallen in a heap yesterday after the first book launch and then had nothing in the tank for today. Whereas now I know you come home from that book launch, you put on your snugglies, you have something delicious to eat, you have a really good sleep, you don't cane it, drink lots of wine, and it's taken me, and that was how I used to medicate, right?
Yep.
Because I was so hyped up from life.
Yeah.
And I self-medicate with copious amounts of alcohol, in the most recent years, and in the years prior to that, it was, whatever I could get my hands on. So it's I think the more, with all of this stuff, the more you know about yourself, how you operate, where you're at psychologically, where you're at with all of your stuff.
Yep.
Doing the work, having the reflection, taking the time to do things the way that is going to best support you, your life and your goals, rather than just like blindly throwing yourself in time and time again, hoping for a different outcome.
Yeah.
Right?
Perfectionism, I feel, is part of all this stuff. And you describe perfectionism as a saboteur. Can you tell us why?
Yeah. With the saboteurs, so we look at Shirzad Shamin is a Stanford lecturer. I'm going to say Stanford. I'm pretty sure he's a Stanford lecturer who has created like a saboteurs quiz. He's done a lot of work on understanding sort of I think it's 7 major roadblocks that humans have. Perfectionism sort of ties into that, so does people pleasing, so does hyperachieving or being a stickler. These things were at one time a survival mechanism that we adopted to stay safe, right? So a lot of these behaviors are actually formed in our imprint era, so 0 to 7 years old, right? So if we are running these programs that we have imprinted in these very early stages of our lives, they may no longer be serving us. Things like perfectionism it's super interesting because it doesn't necessarily show up the way you think it might. Perfectionism, like if I think of a perfectionist, I always think of someone who like looks just so, their house is super tidy, they're probably like pretty controlling around their food, you know, like this, they're what I imagine a perfectionist to be, but it's not always that, you know. And I have worked with many people who would not have seen themselves as a perfectionist, but their tight control on how they expect something to turn out might mean that they won't even start, right?
Yeah.
Or they are so caught up in outcomes that the process is incredibly painful for them or frustrating for them. Therefore, it sucks, even though the final thing might be great. Getting to it was not enjoyable. So perfection is like the way that the saboteurs can show up in your life. You know, hyperachieving was I was surprised to discover I had the Nadia Comaneci, I call it. I got the perfect 10 in hyperachieving, and I found that really interesting because my very first thought was, what have I ever achieved? Right.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Again,
I've started lots of things, right? I've started lots of things, and none of them have really been particularly successful in my eyes, right? At that time. And then when I look back on it, I realize it is that mentality that is the hyperachieving, right? Yeah, I get lots of shit done. Yeah, I do lots of things. Yeah, I throw myself 500% into all sorts of different projects, which I more often than not see through to the end. Success, failure is a subjective thing, but how I felt about myself was problematic and therefore caused me to continuously strive, struggle, push in order to not feel like nothing I ever do works.
Yeah.
So understanding these saboteurs is like it's one of those things. It's like doing a strength finder test, or if you do your Myers-Briggs, right? It's not going to change your entire life experience, but it's information and it's data. When these behaviors crop up, you can be like,
doing it again.
Hello, is this that? Or no, is this that? Right? Am I pushing this hard because of this? Am I pleasing here? You know, is this my old pattern coming up? Am I being a stickler for the rules when really a bit of flexibility might make this situation better for everyone? You know, recognizing that we have these things in us gives us the opportunity to make choices when they show up, which might make life more pleasurable, more enjoyable, and more successful, you know?
Yeah. I feel that no conversation about burnout is complete without mentioning children and the effects they can have. Part of the book describes a period when you were a single parent, when you had little kids and you were trying to do it all, the fairy tale of doing it all. What are your insights on children and burnout and managing burnout?
I made such a bad joke about this yesterday at the in-person launch. I said condoms. That's my advice.
Danielle.
I know, terrible. My own child was in the back of the room. Terrible. I take it all back. Look, parenting is a relentless business. And parenting solo, as you know,
is a relentless mistress.
Yeah, it is a relentless mistress. Parenting is really difficult and it goes on for a very, very long time. I think, it really does. I think that I keep waiting for it to get easier, and it just keeps getting different and different challenges, now as I'm heading into the teen years and the grunting years and the emotional years, I'm realizing it's a different ball game, but it's equally difficult. I think that as parents, the best thing you can do is cut yourself some slack, right? We've got to be really compassionate with ourselves. Piling on parent guilt to an already difficult job is like just freaking pointless, right? It's unkind. It's really unkind. So we need to be nicer to ourselves about just doing our best, and they say, like, if you're an average parent 80% of the time and you're a bit of a crappy parent 20% of the time, you're actually doing really well, right? So if you're exceptional for 10 minutes a day, like nailing it, okay? But I think firstly there is, just being really compassionate, but I think taking care of yourself, right? We have this tendency to pour all of ourselves into our family and then our work. Honestly, it's those two, work and family. Everyone gets great at work and family. That's why bringing in these other two elements of play and rest, and rest is like restorative activity. It's not necessarily sleep, right? Sleep is a basic biological human need. You need sleep or you're going to actually, like you're going to leave your kids on a corner somewhere. You have to have sleep. So recognizing that you have to come first. We've all heard the expression, put your oxygen mask on first, right? So you need to be taking care of yourself and your needs and ensuring that you have your chocolate bar life elements nailed down before you give anyone else a bite of the chocolate. And that as a parent is going to change in different stages of life, right? When your kids are really little and totally dependent on you, your time is so precious, right? And when you have 2 seconds, the first thing you think of is like, oh, I've got to do the washing, I've got to do, whatever, I've got to quickly whip around, clean the house, or, it's recognizing, okay, you need to take care of yourself, you need to rest, you need to connect with a friend, you need to do something that is fun, that is pleasurable, that is enjoyable, that is not playing with the kids. When I talk to my clients and I ask them, so I work like one-on-one with people as well as doing sort of workshop facilitation and leadership development programs and things like that. So I see it in so many different contexts, right? I see this playing out. But when I'm working with clients one-on-one and I ask them, what do you do for fun? It cracks me up because inevitably they will say things like, oh, I play with my kids, right? That's not fun, right? Maybe for some people it's fun, but it might be fun for 5 or 10 minutes. But
More
really,
fun than your fun,
right? You're doing it for them, okay?
Yeah.
And then they might say, I catch up with my friends, right? Yeah, you catch up with your friends. You go out for dinner. Maybe you drink too many margaritas, and it's great. It's a good time, right? But what do you do to get into that flow state space where you are completely like enrolled in this thing that you're doing, where time just sort of stands still, or you're like losing track of yourself. You are so completely focused that everything just slips away, right? That is what we're aiming for with play. And as adults, like we did it all the time as kids, you'd spend hours making forts, climbing trees, playing in the mud, like whatever it was. And as adults, we lose that. So finding what that thing is for you, and it might still be making forts and climbing trees, like power to you, but it might be something else. It might be photography, it might be gardening, it might be painting, it might be whatever it is. It might be gaming. Like I'm not here to judge what people do for play. I'm here to suggest that you get curious and you find your gateway back to that thing that is just for you. And then prioritizing restorative activity. And as a parent, that is having like little quiet moments by yourself in order to like reset your nervous system, in order to relax, in order to bring the pressure down And also, as you know, as busy people with busy diaries, it is, instead of like just plowing through your to-do list like morning till night every single day, it's taking these little micro breaks and just resetting in between tasks. Because, like, here's a spoiler: to-do list is never finished. It's a real design flaw in our productivity list. In our productivity, it's endless.
Yeah.
So trying to get to the end of it, like, don't bother. You know, it's okay to give yourself permission to have regular moments. And you don't have to get, like, I'm talking moments, 30 seconds of breathing, of grounding, of stretching, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a cup of tea, things like that actually makes you more productive, actually
Yep.
makes you more focused.
Yep.
Actually makes you less likely to yell, scream, and lose your shizzle at the end of the day.
Yes, I have been implementing this. There's been many benefits for me from publishing your book and editing your book, because I've been
Excellent. What's your favorite? What do you do? Like, if you've got just a short amount of time, let's say you've just got a snippet of time, you've got the busy diary. What do you do, Jess? Like, how are you actioning it in your own life?
I just look at my cats. I have a spare room over here with a couch, and I can just look out. There's a lovely view out the window of the trees, and it will just be, just a little bit of that. It's great. And I was never using that room. So thanks to you, I've started.
How good is that?
Yeah, and it really, really helps.
So simple, right? And that's what, a couple of breaths, a couple of seconds. It doesn't take a really long time to just.
Yeah. Pat a cat, go back to work.
Pat a cat. Yeah. Yeah. My dog loves that. I heard Glennon Doyle actually say that, on the subject of like doing too much and always doing a lot, she said that her dogs are her barometer for when she's getting it right, because her dogs love nothing more than when she is lazy, right? So when she's lounging on the couch and they are lounging on top of her, her dogs are their happiest. So when she has happy dogs, she feels like she's getting this productivity gig right.
Yeah.
So, be more like a cat, be more like our animals.
Did you enjoy writing a book?
Surprisingly, yes, actually. I quit writing. So I was a journalist, and I quit writing like 6 years ago. So I said I wasn't going to do it. And a number of people have suggested since that I should write a book. And I was like, no, I don't write. That's not me anymore. That's the old me. No, that's not me. So when I got this light bulb, I should write a book moment, it actually, because I knew what I wanted to write, and then with the help of yourself and another person who has written a book and sent me her sort of chapter outlines and whatever, I was able to see structurally how you put a book together.
Yep.
And then once you can see all these bite-sized chunks, so how do you eat the elephant, right? Like when you're just looking at a book as this like big entity, it's very hard to fathom. But when we were looking at it as these bites and what each bite is leading us to, it flowed. And just having the discipline to write every day, I had a deal with myself, right? 1 hour every day. If more came, great. If not, also fine. But I also went away. Yeah, I went away. I had a few days where I did like whole days. And yeah, it really, it came together. I enjoyed it so much. I think I'll do it again.
Yay. Yeah, that's great. What is next for you now? Obviously, you're going to be promoting your book, but what have you got coming up?
So I've got 3 more launches of this one. So why have a fun size Mars bar when you can have a king size one, right? I've got 3 more launches coming up in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane in the next 4 weeks. I've got a Women in Leadership in the Public Sector conference coming up in Canberra at the end of this month for 3 days. I've got a lot going on over the next sort of 6 weeks. after which I will be recalibrating. There's going to be a lot of this. Like there's the online program that's coming out. There's the audio book that's coming out. However you want to consume this knowledge and integrate it into your own life is going to be accessible very shortly. And then I think I'm going to start my new book.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And one of the things I loved was you saying to me, let's do the gold spine because I'm extra. And I always think your approach to life is, suck the marrow out of life, like enjoy your life and also share your knowledge with people in a very open way. Like your book is really, an insight into some of the big challenges that you've had in your life. So I think people will get a lot out of it. And it is available now today at all major retailers and all good bookstores.
Today.
Danielle?
Yes. People can find me. Is that what you asked? Where can people find me? You can find me on Instagram at I am Danielle Colley. You can also drop me an email, danielle@daniellecolley.com.au. Let's get acquainted. If you want to join my mailing list, just drop me an email. We can have a chat. If you're curious about what I do, if you're curious about the workshops I facilitate, let's have a conversation because I love connecting and I love chatting to people.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Oh, you can also have a look at my website, daniellecolley.com.au.
Sure. There's many, many options. Well, congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you, Jess. You're really great at what you do. And you have been an incredible support along the times when I maybe got a little bit wobbly. You're awesome. So thank you so much for helping this to come to life.
My pleasure. It's been fun. Congratulations.
Thank you.